Noah was 18 when he met Lily. People always talk about love at first sight, but for Noah it wasn't that. It was the way she laughed without worrying who was watching. It was how she stopped to pet every dog she passed. It was how she looked at sunsets as if they were something new every single evening. Within months they became inseparable. They promised each other forever the way only young people can, completely believing that forever was guaranteed. One evening they climbed to the top of a hill overlooking their small town. The sky was painted orange and purple, and the world below seemed peaceful. If we ever start drifting apart, promise me we'll talk about it. Noah laughed softly. We'll never drift apart. She smiled, but deep down, she wished he hadn't answered so quickly. Life, however, doesn't ask for permission before it changes. After graduation, Noah started working long hours to save money. Lily began college in a city nearly an hour away. At first they called every night. They shared every little detail of their day. Then the calls became shorter. I'm tired. I'll call you tomorrow. I've got an early shift. I have an exam. Tomorrow slowly became next week. Weeks became months. Neither of them stopped loving the other. They simply stopped making time for each other. The strange thing about relationships is that they rarely fall apart all at once. They fade. One unanswered message, one canceled plan, one conversation that never happens, until eventually, silence feels normal. One afternoon, Noah saw a picture online of Lily laughing with new friends. He wondered if she'd already forgotten him. Instead of asking, he convinced himself that she had. That same night, Lily noticed Noah smiling in a photo with co-workers after work. She wondered if he'd already moved on. Instead of asking, she cried herself to sleep. Both believed the same lie. Both suffered alone. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't letting go, it's realizing the moment has already passed. By the time you say goodbye, the goodbye has already happened, quietly, in all the silences you shared. It's, strange how love can linger in the spaces between words and how eventually, those spaces become all that's left. Months later they met at the little cafe where they'd once spent entire afternoons dreaming about the future. Neither looked angry, they simply looked tired. I miss you. I miss us. Neither knew what to say after that. Finally, Lily whispered, when did we become strangers? Noah stared into his untouched coffee. I don't know. The truth was that neither of them knew. There had been no betrayal, no shouting, no dramatic ending. Just, hundreds of small moments where they chose silence instead of honesty. They hugged goodbye outside the cafe. Neither realized it would be the last time they would ever hold each other. Years passed. Life moved forward the way it always does. Noah built a career. Lily became a teacher. They lived separate lives in separate cities. One rainy afternoon, Noah walked into a grocery store after work. As he reached for a loaf of bread, he heard a familiar laugh. He turned. There she was, older, different, yet somehow exactly the same. A little girl held her hand. A wedding ring rested on her finger. For a brief moment, the entire world disappeared. Only two people remained, standing in the middle of an ordinary grocery store with years of memories between them. Sometimes, the most important lessons aren't learned in a single moment but over the course of many silent days and quiet goodbyes. We carry those lessons with us, tucked away in the corners of our hearts, only realizing their weight when tomorrow finally arrives, and it's not quite what we expected. Hi Noah, hi Lily. They smiled politely, like old friends. They spoke for less than a minute. How are you? I'm doing well. You look happy. You too. Then her daughter tugged at her sleeve. Mom, can we go? Lily nodded. She looked back at Noah one last time. It was really good seeing you. You too. She walked away. Noah stood still until she disappeared around the corner. Only then did he realize he wasn't grieving the woman she had become. He was grieving the life they never had. As he drove home, he remembered that evening on the hill years ago. If we ever start drifting apart, promise me we'll talk about it. Neither of them had kept that promise, and that was the tragedy. Not because they stopped loving each other, but because they assumed the other one already knew. Love is rarely destroyed by one terrible day. More often it is worn away by words left unsaid, feelings left hidden, and the belief that there will always be another tomorrow. The hardest lesson in life is realizing that tomorrow is never promised. Sometimes, the last conversation you have with someone doesn't feel important. Sometimes, the last hug doesn't feel like goodbye. Sometimes, you only discover the value of a moment after it has become a memory. If this story has a villain, it isn't distance, it isn't time, it isn't fate, it's silence. Because silence has ended more relationships than hatred ever will. And when two people finally realize what they've lost, they're often standing on opposite sides of a life that can no longer be rewritten.